Video 1, review of slope. If you remember how to calculate slope and you don't need to watch the video, feel free to skip this one. So what we're going to be going over is how to find slope. And remember that slope means the change in your y-axis over the change in your x-axis. And we usually say that by just cutting that sentence and saying, oh, your slope is how many units you're rising over how many units you're running. So rise over run. I have here a review of one of the problems that we did on workbook 8 back in December. So what we're going to be doing here is calculating the slope. We need to remember, slope equals how many units you're rising over how many units you are running. Okay, so if I tell you, for example, determine the first thing before we actually calculate the slope, remember that the slope can be positive or it can be negative. If it is positive, we say that we're going uphill, and if it is negative, we're going downhill. So I immediately notice this KLMN. All these slopes are gonna be like all these values that I calculate, they're gonna be positive, and these ones in here are gonna be negative. Something else that you need to remember is if I'm moving up, that is positive, and if I'm moving down, that is negative. If I'm moving right, that is positive, and if I'm moving left, that's negative. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're doing your rise over run. So I'm just gonna move all this information to a corner so it doesn't bother me anymore, and I can use this section here to write down the information. Okay, so imagine that I tell you, hey, find the slope between L M of the segment LM. So what you have to do is pick a point. It doesn't matter which one. You can start in L, you can start in M. I'm going to start in L. And then I'm going to count how many units you're going to rise. So you count 1, 2, 3 units that you're rising. Are you going up or are you going down? You went up. So if you're going up, that means that this is a positive number. And then we need to count how many units we're running. So if I'm here, I'm running 1, 2. Now you don't have to lift the pencil. You're doing rise over run without lifting your pencil. You're doing 2. Do you move to the right or do you move to the left? You move to the right. That means that these 2 is positive. So the slope for the segment LM, it's gonna be, let me try to use this color coding in here, 3 over 2. But if you say, hey, Ms. Ortega, but I want to start on letter M, I don't want to start on letter L, sure, you're gonna get the same values. If you're in letter M, how many units do you have to go down to reach L? 1, 2, 3. You went down, that means that this 3 is a negative 3. And then if you are trying to run, we're going to do 1, 2. We went to the left, that's a negative 2. Is a negative 3 over negative 2 the same thing as 3 over 2? Yes, they are. So that means that these two values are the same. It doesn't really matter how you calculate the slope. Let's look at this other value in here. Imagine that I tell you get the slope between P and Q. So again, pick a point. I'm gonna pick point P. I usually pick the one that is to the left. There's a routine, doesn't really matter. So if I want to try to reach point Q, I need to go down. So I'm gonna go 1 unit down. Because I'm going down, that means that it's a negative movement. How many units am I running? 1, 2. I'm going right, that means that it's a positive. So the slope for segment PQ, it's going to be rise over run. And because this line is going downhill, that means that this line has a negative slope.